Hello everyone, my name is Sujin. I'm working in Sungkyunkwan University as a postdoctoral researcher. First of all, thank you for giving me an opportunity to presentation in the conference. Our research topic is about participatory budgeting. So the title of this research is Participatory Budgeting and the Pattern of Local Government Spending, Evidence from South Korea. This presentation is follow. First, I will introduce the definition of PB. Hereafter, it means that participatory budgeting. Hereafter, I call it PB. And then introduce our research motivation and explain about the PB in Korea. Although the PB was adopted very widely in the world, the PB has a very different process and formation. In part 3 and 4, I will describe the data and empirical strategy. Then I present the empirical findings. At the end of the presentation, I will conclude the paper. I'm very curious about does your country implement participatory budgeting? Yep. Everybody knows about the participatory budgeting here at the PB, but I will shortly describe about the PB. PB was allowed citizens to directly participate in the budgeting process, present opinions, and reflect them in the actual budget. PB works through two mechanisms. First mechanism is pure information mechanism. According to the pure information mechanism, citizens and elected politicians discuss the location of public spending. PB is expected to generate a pure informational gain regarding the citizens' preferences. As a result, policymakers are able to provide goods and services and to develop policies that better match these preferences. And second, PB mechanism is increased accountability commitment mechanisms. According to the second mechanism, by opening up the black box of budgetary design and implementation to the whole society, PB is expected to strengthen political accountability as it works as a commitment device for the elected politicians. As a result, under the PB model, citizens can more accurately monitor and evaluate the elected politicians' actions. These two mechanisms have implications that can be tested empirically. So, former researchers have a very positive impact on the PB. PB promotes an efficient allocations of public funds by improving information flows between policymakers and service users such as citizens or residents, and by making government more transparent and accountable. PB leads to the allocation public spending that closely matches popular preferences. However, PB has a very negative impact on local government. Because PB is a very short-term exercise, citizens' demands are often biased toward more immediate and visible programs such as welfare, sanitation, or transportation. And municipal executives have an incentive to reallocate resources toward more visible spending to increase their chance to re-election. Thus, municipalities with limited resources for new programs shift resources from other programs, such as expenditures for long-term development, for instance, urban projects. Former researchers focused on just a few specific items, so there are limited research on the impact of PB on the overall pattern of public expenditures. In the sense, our research motivation is that how does a PB affect overall pattern of budget? Before I introduce about the PB in Korea and the empirical model, I will summarize about our research. Note that South Korea, hereafter I called Korea, provides either setting for our research because nearly all municipalities have adopted PB with sufficient time variance. We used the data from 226 Korean municipalities. We examined the effect of PB on the composition of local public spending. According to the estimation results, we have two findings. First, the finding is that PB relocates resources from long-term development such as urban project investment toward more immediate and visible expenditures, for example, the welfare and sanitation or roads such as transportation. And second finding is that PB affects the municipal budget by a greater amount than the expenditure programs directly allocated through PB process. Based on two findings, our finding supports the view that PB leads to spending allocations that match popular preferences by increasing information flows between policymakers and citizens. This figure 1 presents a geographic evolution of PB experiences of all municipalities over time. Municipal boundaries are shown in gray, and the regional boundaries are shown in bold, defined 60 metropolitan and provincial regions. Municipalities that adopted PB in the early periods 2004 to 2006 are indicated by darker shades on the map. As you can see in the map, early adopters are concentrated in the southwest region, which has a very strong presence of left-wing parties. Before I introduce about the adoption, in Korea, PB adoption receives very strong support from the national government. Although the national government has been main driver adoption, the actual decision to adopt PB depends on mayors who elected by every 4 years. Figure 4 shows that the share of municipalities with PB over time. In Korea, PB was introduced in the early 2000s by mayors from the left-wing party. Since the first adoption in 2004, PB rapidly spread to other municipalities. In 2010, as you see in the graph, roughly 45% of all municipalities have adopted PB. And in 2011, the implementation of PB was mandated by the national government. So in 2017, 99.6% of the municipality was adopted PB. In Korea, PB consists of 3 steps. First, citizens make proposals for projects through local meetings, surveys, and public hearings. Its municipal department collects details of the proposed items and submit the draft budgetary plan to the Citizen Budget Committee. Next, the committee ranks proposed items and votes on the submitted draft budget plan. Finally, the Citizen Committee and the Municipal Executive draw up the finalized budget proposal, which is then passed to the Municipal Council for the approval. This table shows the examples of the proposed items through PB. Seoul and Gwangju is the main city in Korea. The most submitted the opinion is about the installation for surveillance camera to prevent or traffic enforcement or for illegal dumping of garbage. And second most proposed item is about the improvement road and pedestrian. As you know, in the items, proposed opinions through PB are mainly composed of welfare, transportation, or safety-related project. These expenditures are of the nature of immediate needs or inconvenience of residents or citizens. However, there are few proposals for large-scale projects such as local long-awaited project because in the former researchers pointed out that ordinary citizens lack relevant information about the short-term and long-term payoffs of local expenditure programs. Now, I will introduce about the data and empirical model to find out the effect of PB on local government spending. We use the data that 226 Korean municipalities for the 2002-2017 period. And we have 9 dependent variables: administration, education, sanitation, and social welfare, regional development, agriculture, industry, transportation, and public safety. The independent variable is the dummy variable for the presence of a TPB. And to test and to control other factors affecting public expenditures, we add the population total expenditure per capita, mayor's political ideology, such as left-wing political party, and region-specific time trends. And to check the robustness of our main result, we additionally control the intergovernmental transfer, local tax revenue, fiscal independence index, and gross regional domestic product. In the robustness check part, table A1 shows the summary statistics that we used in the empirical model. Just to show this, and maybe it's very important because education, sanitation, welfare is very increased after the adoption of PB. However, the regional development is really decreased after the adoption PB. To test the impact of PB, we consider the following panel data model. YJIT is the expenditure on the job in municipality I and your T in per capita. PBIT is the dummy variable for the presence of a PB. XIT is the control variables as we mentioned above. And theta I is municipality fixed effects. Mu-T means that time fixed effect. And UIT is error term. This model is a fixed estimate model. Our empirical model's identifying assumption is that adoption of PB is based on unobserved but fixed municipality heterogeneity. However, we have a potential drawbacks from the endogenous adoption of PB because an unobserved shock affecting a municipality's needs for certain spending projects could lead to a change in both the demand for PB and citizens' preferences for specific expenditures such as welfare programs or road maintenance. However, I was mentioned above, in Korea, the adoption of PB was mainly driven by the national government, so the possibility of the potential drawbacks is less likely in Korea. And in this model, with the region-specific time trends is because region-specific time trends controls for time-varying effects on municipal expenditures that are common within a specific region. Table 2 presents the results of estimating fixed effects model for 9 categories of per capita municipal expenditures. PB would increase per capita spending on sanitation. Can you see this coefficient? Spending by about 9% of the sample mean. Welfare by about 3% of the sample mean, and transportation by about 22% of the sample mean. However, in region development spending, PB would reduce the per capita spending of regional development by about 17% of the sample mean. It indicates that PB has a robust positive impact on sanitation, welfare, and transportation. However, it has a robust negative impact on regional development spending. Based on the main results, we interpreted the result that PB systematically alters the pattern of local public spending by relocating budgets toward more immediate and visible projects such as health and sanitation, and away from long-term development planning such as urban project. Intuitively, PB being a short-term exercise responds to the immediate demands of the local population. Because in Korea, I don't know exactly how about the Ecuador. Municipal governments lack resources to invest in new programs. They have to shift the resources from other programs, such as investment long-term development. However, we have potential concern is that mandatory adoption policy by the national government is potentially related with the demand shocks for local public goods such as social welfare programs. In addition, our empirical model is based on theoretically expectation that the decision to adopt PB voluntarily. So in panel A, we use only data from voluntarily adopted, and the result is consistent with the main results. The effect of PB on the pattern of public spending may depend on the municipality's location. For example, it is located in the metropolitan or non-metropolitan area. So the municipality's location, which potentially affects residents' preferences for specific expenditures and may be associated with adoption of PB. So to examine whether the impact varies with the location, we split the PB dummies into two in panel B, metropolitan and non-metropolitan area. Third panel is about the controlling for local tax revenue. We control for local tax revenue as a proxy variable for municipality income, which may affect both residents' preferences for specific expenditure and mayor's incentives to adopt PB. And in panel D, we add the intergovernmental transfer from the central government, which is a major source of municipal government finance. And in panel E, we control for the physical independence index because municipalities with low physical independence receive additional grants when physical needs arise. And final, panel F, We control for the level of economic development and the region where the municipality is located. According to these results, the results of alternative specifications remain qualitatively similar to our main result. Table 4 is final results. We estimate the effect of PB on the total expenditure. Column 1 is estimation results without regional specific time trend. And column 2 is a result with a regional specific time trend. Two results are very similar. It indicates that PP has an insignificant effect on total expenditure due to substitution impact. The potential explanation is that increase in various expenditure items such as welfare and sanitation or transportation are offset by the large reduction in regional development spending. Based on the empirical analysis about the effect of PB on allocation of government spending, we have two findings as we mentioned above. First finding is that PB reallocates resources for long-term development investment to a more immediate and visible expenditure. We think, me and my coworker, I think that second finding is very important because it is consistent with the first mechanism at the first I mentioned. PB affects the municipal budget by a larger amount than the expenditure programs directly allocated through the PB process because PB leads to the local public spending allocations by improving information flows between policymakers and citizens. We think that every policy is very important, but the participatory budgeting is that citizens can participate directly in the budget process. So between this process make the information flows more fluently between policymakers and citizens. So our research is consistent with the first mechanism. It means that first mechanism is more important than second mechanism. So yes, this is the presentation I prepared. Thank you for listening my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Sujin, for your presentation. We're going to go through the audience's questions right now.
Yeah.
The first question is, how is the citizen committee built? Because you mentioned that there is a whole process, but we want to know maybe if there is some differences in age and gender. Could you explain a little bit about that?
There's no limitation to make a proposal through the local meetings, surveys, and public hearings. Gender maybe is not important to propose items, and age, maybe age not limited. There's no age limitation. So every citizens can make proposals through the local meetings, surveys. So there's no limitation to participate in the proposals.
Thank you.
How about Ecuador? Do you have your country implementation the participatory budgeting?
No, actually we have not. The Professor Sansi just wrote an interesting comment in the chat section, and he mentioned that maybe it works better in more developed countries. We haven't been able to properly take on the participatory budgeting in Ecuador. So we will see maybe in the future. We have another question for you. Do you know if there are any studies regarding if there is any influence in how the committee is built? I'm going to further produce my question. You know, maybe if there are more women in the participatory budget committee, the results will be different. Do you have knowledge if there is some sort of, I don't know, bias regarding that?
You mean that the women is biased and they participate in budgeting?
Yes, if there is any effect in if we have like a more, I don't know, maybe more women or maybe more people from a certain age group in the citizen committee, rather than maybe if the citizen committee is all male, maybe the results will be different.
I understand. Actually, the committee members is biased about 60% of the women, and age is between 24 to 54 years. Is biased about 7%. So actually, these people are very actively working in society. So of course they biased. They very interested in the society in budget process. So maybe some special group or special gender is biased in participate in the process.
Okay, thank you. We have another question. It's regarding the participatory budget, if it is applied for the whole country or for each district.
Each district.
Okay, and then if the budget has been moved to solve like visible issues, how is the task from those issues that maybe have not been solved in the long run? Private companies help with those, maybe the government had to take care of those projects when this allocation occurs, you know, from the short term to the long term.
Actually, we have concerned about what you asked me, but we try to think about how can I deal with this issue. So I think I cannot answer about your question, sorry, but I will prepare, and now I expect you to talk about in this issue later.
Thank you. Could you tell us who maybe decides the maximum budget for each district, each territory in South Korea?
Maximum budget is from the national government. However, the mayor have incentive to get more budget from the national government by lobbying or from through the legislator. So maybe I think the budget is it depends in the national government in Korea.
Okay, thank you. And how important, according to your research, is the loss of allocative efficiency in economic development in the left or right-wing municipalities? Is there any difference?
Sorry, please, one more time?
Yes. How important, according to your research, is the loss of allocative efficiency in economic development, maybe also in poverty reduction in left or right-wing municipalities?
Maybe we very, I don't know, how can I talk about this issue? Because actually short-term here, short-term is very, short-term spending is very important for citizens. However, it makes loss efficient because the long-term expenditure program is very important to develop the region. So we just estimate the effect on PB. So we don't want to talk about the ideological.
Okay.
But Yeah, however, I think this, our research contribution is about the information flow. Yeah, just
Thank
focus
you.
on the improving information flows.
Yeah, I have another one. If there, after the budget has been allocated, if there is a survey to measure the level of satisfaction of those that are participant in the process.
Please, one more time.
Yes.
Sorry.
If there is a survey, maybe
yeah.
questions that you do to the people after this process has been done, like the money has been allocated. Yeah, if
Yeah, we have. After the implementation, the budget committee members, which were elected by the citizen, they monitor the budget whole process and how can the budget well implemented. So we have just to monitor and evaluate the budget process.
Great. And one final question is that maybe you could tell us a little bit about what's next in your line of work, or where are your current projects right now?
Maybe me and my coworker think about the participatory budgeting, how affect the people's citizens' preferences or welfare, exactly, such as mortality or the aged people's healthcare. So we working in that process about the PB, effect on PB on healthcare.